What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to show you how to do a pretty easy solo hard mode Kera Pack method. This method is probably somewhere around like 80% revolution. The first phase you do kind of have to do a little bit, and obviously you have to do something in the last phase just to deal with the clones. But yeah, this method gets about 420 kill times, so hopefully you guys blaze through some of these kills. Wait, before you skip this part, make sure you listen to this little disclaimer. So, before I get any deeper into this video, this method is going to be skipping pretty much every single lightning wall. If some stuff goes wrong, you might get a lightning wall, but it's usually not that big of a deal if you do get it. But for this guide, I expect people to know how to do the basic prayer switching. You don't have to do any like flicking or anything like that, but I do expect you to be able to like put on pray melee during the slams and then put on pray magic at the end of the fight. I also expect people to be able to do the DD mechanic. If you don't know what that is, it's basically the first mechanic that Kerapac does in every phase. You can step under him and it completely nullifies that mechanic. And then the only other thing you really need to know for this method is what the clones are at the end of the fight. I'll show you how I deal with the clones and what I think the best way to deal with the clones is, but I expect you to at least like understand like what's happening during the end portion of the fight. This isn't going to be some super in-depth guide. It's mostly just going to be a easy rotation to skip all of the lightnings and get a 420 kill time. Moving on to the preset. To start off with the relics, you can see I'm just using the standard best in slot relics. The only ones that you actually need though, I guess, are Fury of the Small and Conservation of Energy. Death Ward isn't required. I didn't use it in the kills you see in this video, but if you're not very comfortable with the ending part of the fight, Death Ward is really good for that, and obviously you don't want to be dying at the end of the fight because it just like wastes all your time. It's like the worst place to die, so Death Ward maybe would save you. For the familiar, I just have a Blood Reaver. You don't need scrolls or anything like that, although you could put them in your inventory and manually cast them if you wanted to, but it's probably not worth it. You're better off just eating, it's cheaper. Moving on to the gear, you can see I'm just using 4 pieces of the first Necromancer robe with Cinderbanes and then the tier 95 weapons. This is absolutely required if you want to be getting consistent lightning skips. I don't even know if you could use tier 90s with this method. If you do use tier 90s, you would absolutely be getting the first lightning 100% of the time, and you might skip the lightning walls on the second and third phases, which may be worth doing if you don't have tier 95s and you want to do this for some reason. But yeah, I would highly suggest getting tier 95s if you want to do this method. Obviously, you're gonna need a Zuck Cape and an Amulet of Souls or an EOF. I just use an Amulet of Souls because it's way cheaper to use, and I don't use the special attacks anyway, so you might as well just use an Amulet of Souls. For the aura, you can see I'm using Majra. This is easily the best aura. It's so good for necromancy, but if you don't have resets or something, or you don't have this aura, you probably could get away with the Vampirism aura. It just spams out a ton of poison damage, so that might be similarly as good, but those are the only auras that I would use for this method. And then finally for the God Book, I would use a Book of Full. It's easily the best here, but a Book of Jazz is also probably viable, and you maybe even could get away with a Book of Wen, but that might get a little sketchy and you maybe would be missing the first lightning wall for sure, but you could probably still be getting the second and third skips. For the inventory, you can see it's pretty standard inventory. The only things to really note for this inventory are going to be the Excalibur is really good for the final phase just to get some free healing. The Quirm Sticks are really good for just boosting your poison damage for a really low cost. And then that little 1-dose potion next to the Vuln Bomb is a poison +++, so yeah, make sure you have one of those just so you can have the poison. And then the only other things in this inventory are just Cerebrews and Blubbers. The thing about the Blubbers is I would use these over like real hard foods, like a sailfish, because the Blubbers don't drain adrenaline, and adrenaline is incredibly important with necromancy, so you don't want to be draining that at all. Blubbers are just really good. And then, yeah, just an overload, and that's the only things that aren't highlighted. For the 2 highlighted things in the inventory, obviously, one's a Vuln Bomb. You absolutely need these. You can spam them on so many different targets in the fight that it just boosts your damage an absurd amount and makes it way easier. It's kind of expensive, but it's so worth it if you want to put in that amount of effort. And you probably absolutely need it for the first phase, and all of the other phases probably too. And then that potion next to the overload is an enhanced replenishment potion. Like I've said in some of my other videos, these are just way easier to use than the renewal, because it's just instant adrenaline and it gives you a ton like right away. And it basically makes it so you living death, 1 ability, and you can instantly death skulls, which is super nice for like low effort methods. But yeah, that's pretty much everything with the preset. Again, I wouldn't really downgrade too much. Especially if you want to be getting consistent lightning skips on every single phase. So 2 final things for the preset. The first is going to be the perks that I use are the best in slot PVMing perks. You can check the wiki for that. Just make sure you go over to the advanced list. But if you look at the screen, you can see I have Invigorating 4 and then Impatient 4, Devoted 4 highlighted. These perks are really good for this method, but they aren't required by any means. They just make it a little bit nicer. Invigorating 4 is really good for the first phase just to get more adrenaline when you're doing the laddering thing. And then Devoted 4 with Impatient is really nice if you're going to be tanking some melee hits. You can just like block a bunch of damage for free while you're tanking. But again, you don't need any of these. It just makes it a little bit nicer. And then the final thing is going to be, you're going to absolutely 100% need the fully upgraded Enriched Pontifex Ring. And that's just so you don't get stunned by the melee slam. If you get stunned by the melee slam, it kind of ruins this method because we are going to be tanking a little bit of that damage. So yeah, you're absolutely going to need the fully upgraded version of that. Okay guys, so I just watched my talk through, and there's something I want to explain because I feel like if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say laddering, you're gonna be sitting there like, what the heck is this? So yeah, basically what I mean by laddering is using the tier 95 special attack to its fullest. I'm going to try to put a little picture of my buff bar in the corner, and when you see the little symbol for basic attack, that means it's charged up and ready to use. So this is what I mean by laddering. So when I target something, I turned off my automatic use of basic attack, and I have Revo off right now just so everybody can see. But basically what I mean here is if I use the tier 95 special like that, I then use the basic attack, and then I use Touch of Death, and it will charge up my next basic. So then I can use the basic again, and then I can use Finger of Death, which charges up my next basic. And then I can use the basic again, and then obviously Death Skulls would charge up my next basic. And this is what I mean by laddering, is basically just going through your basic attacks and cycling to always get a boosted basic. And this gives you a massive amount of damage for like minimal effort. Obviously, you're gonna have to be using things in between the like laddering portion. So if I turn Revo on here, you can you have to wait 13 seconds. All right, so now I have Revo on. If I use the special, then I use this, the basic attack, you can see I Revo a few abilities, and then I use Touch of Death, and then I use the basic attack, and by the time I use the basic attack, Touch of Death is already back. It automatically casts. I manually cast the basic, and then I continue to just Revo here. Death Skulls would already have been cast, so ignore that. But yeah, I just sit here, and you know, once you get the hang of it, you will see the optimal order to be using like the basic attack and Touch of Death, and then like the optimal order to let it Revo out the rest of the stuff. If you kind of watch my character in the actual talk through kill, you'll see what I mean. But that's what I mean by laddering. I feel like it's important to note exactly what I mean, because I don't know if other people actually call it that. I don't know what people call the tier 95 special attack and how to properly use it, but yeah, it's pretty important. And then the final thing that I want to note, I feel like maybe some people don't know this, but the devotion ability, if you kill something with devotion active, it will extend devotion by 5 seconds. So when I use Devotion, when one of the clones is really low and kill it, it will extend my Devo, and that's really important to try to do on the final clone. Just so when you're walking to Kerapac, you don't just randomly get stacked out. Anybody who's done hard mode Kerapac probably knows that he can just randomly like stack 2 hits on top of each other when you move. And yeah, you don't want that to happen because you will get absolutely dumpstered, and an extended Devo 100% completely nullifies that. So it's definitely worth trying to extend the Devo, especially on that last clone. All the returning viewers know what time it is. So for these low effort methods, I personally like to make a additional action bar. Obviously, if you have like your own interface, this will probably be somewhere on your own interface, but if we go into the combat settings and we go over here to the combat and action bar and then action bar, you can see here you can just display additional action bars. You see it goes away, and then my bar was number 13, so I click it and then boom, it's back. And that's how you set up an additional action bar. And on my action bar, I have Conjure Undead Army, Life Transfer, the Vengeful Ghost ability, Invoke Death, Split Soul, and then the Vuln Bombs. And then some of the other stuff I have on here is going to be my Replenishment Potion, and then a few different defensive abilities that I like to have, you know, quick access to. Some important ones for this method are going to be Devotion. This is really good here. And then Reflect and Debilitate are also really good for the final phase, so you don't have to sit there and like spam eat. You can just like block a bunch of damage. And then obviously just Food Keybound. And I would highly suggest setting one of these up. You can like put it right next to your feet, and it makes it very easy to just click on whatever ability you need to activate. The order that we use a lot of the abilities in the beginning of the fight is going to be Conjure Undead Army, and then we life transfer them, and then we use the Ghost ability, and then we use Invoke Death and Split Soul, and then when Kerapac spawns, we Vuln Bomb. So they're all in a line, and you can just easily click them all without really having to do too much. So I would highly suggest setting something like this up. It just makes your life a lot easier. And then for the action bar that I use, the Revolution bar, you can see it is on screen here. At the end of the bar, you can see there is the basic attack and then Living Death outside of Revolution. You're going to have to be manually casting these, and then you're also probably going to be manually casting Finger of Death occasionally, especially during the first phase. And then, you know, again, maybe you're going to be casting Volley of Souls too, but for the most part, you really only are going to be manually casting Living Death, the basic attack, and then Finger of Death. Alright guys, so we are going to do a little through here on hard mode Kerapac. This is going to be kind of a mid-effort kill, like it's half Revo, half kind of manual-ish, just because you want to get through the first phase without getting the electric wall thing, whatever that's called. So anyway, this is how I do it. So obviously we overload, turn on our buffs, use Sorrow and Soul Split and Darkness, and then Weapon Poison. And then we go through the gate. And the first thing we do is Conjure All, Surge. And then we Life Transfer Surge again. And then we use the Ghost ability, Invoke Death, and then Split Soul. And then we target Kerapac and Vuln Bomb. And then we use the Tier 95 spec, and then we start laddering. So as you can see here, we're just laddering our attacks. And then we get one ability here, Step Under. When you're underneath him, you can cast the Skeleton Warrior ability, and it will cast under him without moving you. So that's a pretty good way to do that. But then we just continue laddering here with Finger of Death. As you can see, we just kind of Finger of Death, Touch of Death, all that stuff. But we're mostly just using our Tier 95 spec abilities until it does the slam here. And then sometimes if I'm hitting bad, I like to just tank the slam. This is a lot better if you have Enhanced Devoted on your gear, but I don't have it on this gear. But you can tank quite a bit of the slam, as you can see. And, you know, it's no big deal. So we're just like going to tank some of the slam to extend the time on phase 1. You don't have to do this on the other phases, but phase 1 it helps quite a bit. I like to do that. I mean, if your DPS is higher, maybe you don't have to, but as you can see, we are pretty close to getting this skip, and then we get the skip here. And now we just build back up to 100% in between the phases. And make sure you re-Vuln Bomb here. And then I like to wait a little bit of time here before I use the little like time warp thing. So now we waited time warp and then step under. And then apparently we didn't step under and we completely screwed up. But either way, we still made it. So we're gonna get the living death here under the time warp and still be fine. I mean, that was a huge mistake, but it shouldn't really matter that much. As you can see, we're just continuing to go through the boss like it's nothing. And now with the living death and death skulls, we should be able to just farm the boss, as you can see. So one trick here when you're getting hit by the slam is get hit by the slam and then walk away and use an ability like that to retarget instead of clicking on Kerapac. It just works better. You know, I don't know. It's just one of those things that just works way better than trying to click on the boss. This boss's click box is super awkward when he's jumping. And even with that huge mistake, as you can see, as long as we manual cast like 1 or 2 abilities or something, we do get the skip. And now here, I noticed that I was gonna screw up and like blow a finger of death, which I don't want to do. So I just like waited a second, used a random basic. But now we're gonna do the same thing here. I think this doesn't work, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. So as you can see, we're just gonna like stand here and yeah, it'll be fine. I mean, you can make quite a bit of mistakes with this as long as if you make a mistake, you want the little orb thing to be like right next to you, like how mine landed. You don't want it to like launch across the arena. But yeah, so you can see here, we get hit, walk away. You can click back on Kerapac if you want, or click an ability, depending on how your timing turns out. So as you can see, I clicked an ability there. Don't click on the skeleton warrior to retarget because it doesn't retarget. But yeah, I mean, I'm making a ton of mistakes here and you know, we're just blowing through this boss like it's not even here. So we phase it, and now during the phase we want to invoke death, and then you can life transfer here, and then click on the little guy, and as long as you do it right, it'll look a lot like that where your HP will full reset. If you do it at the same tick, it doesn't quite work, so make sure you're waiting 1 tick, but yeah, you can get a free life transfer right there, which is really nice. But yeah, then we pretty much just kill this. You can Vuln these guys if you want. You don't have to, although I would Vuln the second too. So we get the insta-kill on that, and then we surge across. And now we hit the time warp and living death. And then we also Adren pot here. We got a relentless, so we didn't have to, but I like to Vuln this guy. And then since we got the relentless, we can get a free Devo here. Usually it won't work like that, but if you get the relentless, you get a free Devo. And now I like to invoke death on this last guy, and then Vuln Bomb him as well. And now my Devo has worn off, so I'm gonna get this Death Skulls, and then I'm gonna Devo after that. And now we're just gonna keep going across. We got that extended Devo, which is really nice. And then we kill Kerapac. And it's really nice if you get the Relentless, but you don't need it or anything like that. And also in this last phase, don't be afraid to eat. Try to stay above half HP, and also you can use like Reflect here or Debilitate or whatever. But yeah, don't be afraid to like spam eat and use like defensives, because he can hit super hard and it just makes it way easier, as you can see. But I'm just mostly revoing here. If you want to manual cast like Finger of Death and stuff, it works out really nicely. And we just got an armadillo symbol. Hog. What the heck? What are the odds? But yeah, that was a 439. That was a super bad kill. Usually we get around 420s. So, yeah. That's funny. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this video helped some people get some hard mode Kerapac solos. I know this boss is pretty difficult for a lot of people. The final phase is kind of a nightmare if you don't know what you're doing, but I find with the method that I've shown, it's not too bad. So you guys made it this far in the video, definitely drop a like on it. It does help promote these videos quite a bit. And thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one.